Hello children, today I am going to discuss a figure of speech of poem number 2, an elementary school classroom in a slum. Now the figure of speech which I am going to discuss, we are discussing it from the camp part 1. Okay, so you can just open your book so it becomes easy for you to just read the sentence and understand the figure of speech. Now the first sentence, that is, far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces. Now see children, most probably in all the lines of this poem, you will be having repetition and alliteration. And it's a common figure of speech. Repetition means the repetition of the same word, and alliteration means the repetition of the sound of a particular letter, isn't it? So now this I am not going to identify, that you can do it by yourself. Now other than repetition and alliteration, we'll just try to identify the figure of speech used in the line of this poem. So in this particular line, far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, the figure of speech used in this line is synecdoche. Why synecdoche? Because here the word faces, which is a part of a body, it stands for the whole body. It doesn't mean only the face of the children, but it stands for the children, for the whole body of the children. So it's a part of a whole. Synecdoche is a figure of speech which talks about the part of a whole. Only a part is given of the body, but it doesn't stand only for the part, but it stands for the whole human body of that particular person. That is why the figure of speech used in this line is synecdoche. Clear? Now the second one, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor. Now here already you have learned this, and it's a very easy and a common figure of speech, that is simile. Simile is a figure of speech in which the direct comparison is made between either two objects or two persons, and the words like, like, as are used in the figure of speech, that is simile. Now here you can see the word like is used to show the comparison between the hair of the children of the slum area and the rootless weeds. They are being compared. The hair of the children and the rootless weeds, they are being compared with each other, and the point of comparison. What is the similarity between the hair of the children and the rootless weeds? The point of comparison, the similarity is both are dry and withered. The hair of the slum, the children living in the slum area, they are also dry and withered, and the rootless weeds, they are also dry and withered. So here the hair of the children, those who are living in the slum area, they are being compared with the rootless weeds. So the figure of speech used is simile. Now the third one, the tall girl with her weighed down head. Now here the figure of speech used is synecdoche. Again it's a synecdoche. Why? Because here the word head, which is a part of the body, it stands for the girl. It's not only, we are not talking only about the head of the girl, but we are talking about the whole girl, the one whole person. That is why the figure of speech is synecdoche. And the second figure of speech used here is transferred epithet. Now transferred epithet means what? The adjective, it is being transferred from one subject to the other. The adjective is being transferred from the one subject to the other in the same line, and actually it is transferred to the other which it doesn't really belong to. Now see, for example, here in this sentence, the tall girl with her weighed down head. Here the adjective is weighed down. Now this adjective weighed down, it is transferred from the girl to head. That means weighed down means what? Depressed. Now the head is depressed or the girl is depressed? Who is depressed? The girl, isn't it? The girl is sad. She is depressed. Okay. So here this adjective weighed down, it is being transferred from the girl to head. That is why it is transfer epithet. Clear? Now the fourth one. The paper seeming boy with rat's eyes. Now, when I was explaining the poem at that time also, I told you that here the paper seeming boy means the boy is compared with the paper. The boy is thin as the paper. Okay. So here the paper seeming boy means the figure of speech here used here is metaphor, because there is an indirect comparison. We are not using the word like like or as. So it's not simile. There is a direct comparison, but an indirect comparison is been made between paper and boy. That means the boy is thin and light in weight like the paper. And there is also one more comparison, that is between the eyes of the boy and a rat. You have seen the rat, the eyes of the rat, they are bulging as if though it's coming out. Same way here the boy who is very weak, his eyes have also bulged out, it has come out. So there is a comparison made between the boy and rat, and that is why it's a metaphor. There is an indirect comparison between a paper and the boy and the rat. Now the second figure of speech used here is hyperbole. That means here there is an overstatement. Overstatement means the boy seems to be thin like paper. A boy can be thin, but he cannot be you might have holded the thin paper in your hand. Now if you hold the thin paper in your hand, and if you take any boy, means any human who is very thin, does the weight of the paper and the human can be the same? No, isn't it? So here is an overstatement that the boy was as thin as the paper, was as light in weight as the paper. So there is an overstatement, is an exaggerated statement. So the figure of speech used here is hyperbole. The stunted, unlucky hair of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk. Now you can see here the words stunted, then twisted bones and gnarled disease. These are the words which has the same meaning. So when the words having the same meaning, they are being used when it's not required. It's an unnecessary use of the words. So the figure of speech used is tautology. Tautology is a figure of speech in which unnecessary use of words are being made. Now the sixth one, at back of the dean class, one unnoted, sweet and young. Now here these words, unnoted, sweet, young, it stands for it represents the boy who is sitting at the end of the class. So it's a metonymy. The figure of speech used is metonymy. Metonymy means the words, different adjectives are being used to represent one particular person. Now the seventh one, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. The figure of speech used is metaphor. Why? Because here the indirect comparison is being made between the dream of the boy. What the boy dreams? He dreams of playing games. And the squirrel is also playing at that time, isn't it? So, as we have seen in the poem, so here the indirect comparison is being made between the dream of the boy and the squirrel. And in the same way, there is a comparison which is made between the class and the tree. Here the boy is in the class and there the squirrel is on the tree. That means the comparison is being made between the dreams, that class is like a and the dreams that class is like a tree room. So here the comparison is being made between the dream of the boy, that is, he is also dreaming of playing, and the squirrel is also playing. The boy dreams of playing games like a squirrel does, and the dreams that class is like a tree room. And the next figure of speech is synecdoche. Again here the word eyes. Eyes, it stands for the boy on the last seat. It doesn't only talk of the eyes of the boy, but it talks of the whole boy. So the figure of speech used is synecdoche, which talks about part for the whole. Number 8. On sour cream walls donations. The figure of speech used here is metaphor. Why? Because there is an indirect comparison which is made between the walls. They are being compared with the sour cream color. The walls are being compared with sour cream color. Then the 9th one. Shakespeare's had cloudless at dawn, civilized dome riding all cities. Now the figure of speech used here is metonymy, because the words like Shakespeare's had, then civilized dome, cities, all these three different words, they represent the civilized society. The head of the Shakespeare, then the civilized dome. Okay, Shakespeare, as we know that he was a learned person, and he was a great poet, a dramatist. Okay, so he was a civilized person. So all these different words, they represent a civilized society. So three different words, they are being used to represent one civilized society. So it is metonymy. Number 10, the belled flowery Tirolesi valley. Now you can see here flowery and valley. They are the rhyming word. They have the same sound. So the figure of speech used is internal rhyme. Internal rhyme means the rhyming words are used in the same line for the poetic effect. Number 11. Open-handed map awarding the world its world. Now the figure of speech used here is repetition, because the word world is repeated for the poetic effect. Number 12. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. Now you can see in this line the word not, not is used. It is a negative word, isn't it? So here the negation is used to convey the positive meaning. Now what is the positive meaning? That the map on the wall hardly shows their world. So in a line, when a negative word is used to show the positive meaning of that particular idea, then the figure of speech used is litotes. Then futures painted with a fog. Number 13, were all their futures painted with a fog. Now the figure of speech used in this line is metaphor, because here there is an indirect comparison between the future of the children of the slum area and the fog. That means the future of the children of the slum area is just like the fog. How dim the fog is? It is dim and it is clouded. The same way the future of the children is also, of the children of the slum area is also very dim. So there is an indirect comparison between the future of the children who lives in slum area and the fog. And the next figure of speech used here is hyperbole, because it shows an overstatement that the future is painted with a fog. It's an overstatement that a future can be painted with a fog. Can you paint your future with a fog? No, isn't it? So it's an overstatement. Then number 14, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. Again here there is an indirect comparison between the sky and the lad. Both are dull. The sky is also dull and the lad is also dull. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. Now actually here the sky, it talks about the life or the future of these children. So the future is also very dull and the lad is also dull. Number 14, that is a metaphor. As I told you, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky is a metaphor, because here there is an indirect comparison between the sky and the lead. The sky is compared with the lead and the point of comparison is both are dull and sad. Number 15, far far from rivers, caps and stars of worlds. Now here the figure of speech used is paradox. A paradox is a figure of speech in which the line which is given in the poem, it may be an absurd statement, but it will have a deep meaning in it. A meaning will be hidden in that line. So the figure of speech used here is paradox. Why? Because this line, far far from rivers, caps and stars of words, is an absurd, it's a strange statement which shows a deep meaning in it, that the rivers and caps, they are words like stars unreachable to the slum who live in the field. These places, that is the caps and the stars, they are very far from these slum children because they are living in dirt, so they cannot go to these natural places and enjoy their time or their life. Number 16th, surely Shakespeare is wicked. The map a bad example. Again here there is it's in paradox. The figure of speech used is paradox because the statement, it has a deep hidden meaning that Shakespeare and the maps of the civilized world make no sense or they are useless to the slum children. What is the hidden meaning in this? When you read this line, it looks very absurd, that surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example. It doesn't, we don't feel that there is any meaning in it, but it has got a very deep hidden meaning that the Shakespeare and the maps of the civilized world which are there in this classroom, it doesn't have any sense or they are useless for the children of this slum area. Then number 17th, with sheep and sun and love tempting them to steal. Now here the figure of speech used is personification. Now what is personification? Personification is a figure of speech in which the inanimate or the non-living things, they are given the human quality. For example, if I'll give you one example. If I say that the wind, it whispers secret in my ears. Okay. Now wind is an inanimate. Now can wind tell you any secret in your ears? Or you can see that your friend may tell some secret in your ears, or your brother or sister can tell. But can the wind come and tell any secret in your ears? No. So this non-living thing is given the human quality of telling the secret, isn't it? Same way in this line, the inanimate objects like sheep and sun, they are given the human quality of tempting. Tempting means attracting. So the figure of speech used here is personification because the inanimate objects like sheep and sun are given the human quality of tempting. The second figure of speech used is metonymy. Why metonymy? Because the words like sheep and sons, they represents the civilized world of the house. That means these words like ships and sons, they are the same words, which both these adjectives we can say, these words, they represent the world of the civilized people. So the figure of speech used is metonymy. Number 18, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes from fog to endless night. Now the figure of speech used here is rhetoric. Rhetoric is a figure of speech in which a question is asked, but we don't expect any answer for that question. The question is asked only for the poetic effect. So here also the question is asked for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes from fog to endless night. The question is asked, but we don't expect any answer. The question is asked, but the poet doesn't want any answer for that question. A question is asked for not the sake of any answer. It's only used for the poetic effect. So the figure of speech is rhetoric. Rhetoric. Now the next figure of speech used in this line is metonymy. Why? Because here the words like cramped holes, they represent the homes in the slums. And the word like fog to endless night, it represents the sad condition. Then personification. The figure of speech used is personification. Why? Because the inanimate, that is lives, inanimate object, that is lives, they are given the human quality of being sly. A person can be sly. Sly means cunning. Okay, a person can be sly, but can any life be sly? No. So here the lives, that is the plural of life. So here the lives are given the human quality of being sly. So the figure of speech used is personification. Number 19th, on their slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel with mended glass like bottle beads on stones. Now the figure of speech used here is metaphor. Why? Because there is a comparison between the slum and slag. And the point of comparison is both are dirty and depressing. On their slag heap. Okay, so you can see there is a comparison between the slag. And we are talking about the slum area in this poem. So the comparison is made between the slum and slag. And the point of comparison is, that is, both are dirty. Slag means the waste separated from minerals during refining. Okay, that is slag. And the slum area is also dirty. So here the comparison is made between slum and slag, and the point of comparison is both are dirty and both are depressing. The another figure of speech used is simile. That is the direct comparison. In metaphor we have indirect comparison, and in simile we have direct comparison. There is direct comparison between the glass in the spectacles of the children and broken bottle bits. The comparison is made between, you can read here this sentence, like bottle bits on stones. The word like is used to show the comparison, direct comparison between the glass in the spectacles of the children and the broken bottle bits. And what is the point of comparison? That is, both are crude. And another figure of speech used is paradox. That means an absurd statement which has a deep hidden meaning in it. Now what is the deep hidden meaning in this line? That the children of the slum area are so undernourished that they look like, it looks that the bones are peeping through their skins. So when we say on their slag heap, the children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel with mended glass like bottle beads on stones. This line, it looks very absurd while reading, but it has a very deep meaning that the children of this area are undernourished. They are not getting proper nourishment, and that is why their bones are peeping through their skins. Then number 20, all of their time and space are foggy slum. Again the figure of speech used is paradox. Why? Because an absurd statement is used here which gives out a deep hidden meaning. What is the meaning, deep hidden meaning in this line? That is, the slum children will pass their entire life and time in the dark slum. Half the How the fog is? It is very dim. Same way the future of the children living in the slum area is also very dark, very dim. Number 21. Number 21. So plot the maps with slums as big as doom. As I told you earlier that when the words like, as or as is being used in a sentence, it shows that the figure of speech used is simile, isn't it? So here you can read the line again. So plot their maps with slums as big as doom. So here the words as big as doom, that shows a comparison, the direct comparison between the slum life of the children and the doom. So the figure of speech used is simile. And what is the point of comparison between the children, the life of the children of the slum area and the doom? That is, both are, the point of comparison is that they are never ending. The life of the slum area is like never ending. It's always miserable. It's like they're miserable, or they will never be happy. They'll always remain sad if they are in this condition. So the point of comparison is to be never ending and miserable. Number 22. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window. Now you can, if you read this line again, you can see there's a rhyming words: governor, inspector, visitor, isn't it? So the rhyming words are used in the same line. So figure of speech used is internal rhyme, and the rhyming words are governor, inspector and visitor. They are used for the poetic effect. The number 23. And these windows that shut up upon their lives like catacombs. Again, yes, the word like is used, so it shows the direct comparison between, what is the comparison? There is a comparison between the tunnels and the lives of the children in the slums. And the point of comparison is that tunnel is also narrow and it's like a tomb like, and the lives of the children is also like that only, because the life of the children, those who are in the slum area, is also very dim, dull, miserable, isn't it? So there is a comparison being made between the tunnels and the lives of the children. How the tunnels are, they are narrow, and the children, those who are living in the slum area, their houses are also very narrow. Now the next one, number 24. Break, oh break open till they break the town. Now here the figure of speech used is exclamation, because an exclamatory form is used to show the poetic effect. Number 25th. And show the children to green fields. Here the figure of speech used is metonymy. Why? Because here the green fields, the adjective green fields, it represents the unpolluted nature. Number 26th. And make their world run azure on gold sands. Now again here the figure of speech used is metonymy, because here the azure on gold sands, it represents the unpolluted seas and beaches. When you feel that anything pleasant or good looking, when it is neat and clean, isn't it? So here the sands, they are azure, and as if though it is shining. Gold sands means as if though the sand is shining on the sea beaches. And why? When they will shine? When they are neat, clean, isn't it? So they are unpolluted, and that is why they are shining. That is why here it's written that the azure on gold sand represents the unpolluted seas and beaches. And the next figure of speech used in the same line is personification. Why? And make their world run azure on gold sands, because here the inanimate thing, that is world, it is given the human quality of running. Only a human can run. The world cannot run, isn't it? So here the inanimate word, that is world, it is given the human quality of running. So the figure of speech used is personification. And the last one, that is, and let their tongues run naked into books. The white and green leaves of open history, theirs whose language is the sun. Again, the figure of speech used here is synecdoche. Why? Because here the word tongue, it stands for the children of the slum area. We are not talking only about the tongue, but we are talking about the whole body, the whole child. That is the whole, all the children of those who are living in the slum area. So it's about talking about the part for the whole. So it's synecdoche. The next figure of speech is personification. Here the inanimate objects like nature and sun, they are given the human quality of teaching. You can read the sentence again and just find out. And let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves open history, there whose language is the sun. Language is the sun means the sun and the nature, they are given the human quality of teaching. Only the humans can teach us. Okay? And the next figure of speech is metonymy. Here the word run naked, it represents freedom. Then hyperbole. There is an overstatement that the language is the sun. Your language can be English, Gujarati, different languages. Can your language be sun? No. Isn't it? So there is an overstatement that language is the sun. So the figure of speech used here is hyperbole. So I hope all the figure of speech, they are clear to you. Okay. Now you can just go through the next exercise of figure of speech and you can just do it by yourself for your practice. And in the next video, we'll be meeting with the next poem, that is poem number 3. So just keep reading. Till then, goodbye.